So despite all of the awesome stuff going on over the last few weeks now for the entire Battlefront community, there's obviously been a whole resurgence of the game and it's been very fun to be a part of. But despite that, we did unfortunately get some pretty bad news out of EA over pretty much the last 24 hours now. And I'm not going to lie, it doesn't look great for the potential of a Battlefront 3. At least when it comes to EA and DICE anyway. So although this news doesn't directly link to Star Wars or Battlefront, it also very much does. And so I'm going to run you guys through all of the news today and essentially talk about what this could mean for the potential of a Battlefront 3. Now, all of this came from a recent IGN article that, as you can tell by the title, is pretty dire. It says EA cancels Black Panther game and also closes cliffhanger game. So very much not off to a good start with that title, and I'm going to run you guys through the key points. It's a pretty long article here, but I'll save you guys the time and won't read all of it. I'll just read the most important parts. So they said Electronic Arts is cancelling its planned Black Panther game and shutting down developer Cliffhanger Games, IGN has learned. In an email sent to staff from EA Entertainment President Laura Meal said that these changes, alongside other recent cancellations and layoffs, are being done to sharpen our focus and put our creative energy behind the most significant growth opportunities. So always good to start from not just EA, just any of these executives, just straight up shit talking immediately, trying to put out quotes about why they're doing this shit. They're doing it because they're greedy, guys. There's no other logic behind this stuff. So there is a little bit more of this throughout the article, but we'll get to that soon. Now, they go on to say here that in addition to closing Cliffhanger and cancelling Black Panther, EA is also laying off some individuals on both its mobile and central teams. When asked for an exact number of individuals impacted, EA declined to comment. IGN understands the total number of affected individuals in this wave is less than the roughly 300 roles cut last month across Respawn and EA's fan care teams, but cannot confirm by how much. Again, to save you guys the time of listening to the bullshit, there's just more quotes about, oh, this is hard, this is a hard decision to make, or where I only made $100 billion this year instead of 200 billion. They just make this shit up, guys. Don't bother listening to any of that. All of these executive types, they're all the same. They're all greedy, and that's the reason they're cutting people's jobs, so that they can save millions and millions of dollars to pocket themselves, essentially. So because of that, I'm going to skip ahead so that I don't get fucking angry reading this sort of shit. And that's where we come to this part of the article. It says, to that end, Mill's email continues, the company is focusing on a small handful of franchises going forward: Battlefield, The Sims, Skate, and Apex Legends. Meal also reassures EA will continue to invest in its Iron Man game at Motive in the third Star Wars Jedi game, as well as maintain its mobile business despite today's cuts, while BioWare works on the next Mass Effect. Additionally, last year, CEO Andrew Wilson, and I'm not going to lie, I'm just going to stop reading there because Andrew Wilson has absolutely zero idea of how to run this company. So that right there is really the main information that we need to dissect from this interview, or this article, I should say, from IGN. And just to reread that again, they said the company is focusing on a small handful of franchises going forward: Battlefield, The Sims, Skate, and Apex Legends. Keep in mind too that this is not including the EA sports games, so FIFA, or EAFC as it's called now, the F1 game, Madden, games like that. They are a separate entity because technically EA Sports is a different company. So in terms of just the EA games, not the sport games, which is kind of weird. Actually, I would have thought Skate would technically be a sport game, but I guess not. But yeah, Battlefield, The Sims, Skate, and Apex is essentially what they want to focus on moving forward. Now, the first thing that is worth mentioning is that obviously, because they're focusing on just those franchises or IPs, that clearly shows they are just not interested anymore in doing licensed IPs, so Star Wars or Marvel type stuff. Now, they've obviously mentioned they're still working on Jedi 3, and they are still working on the Iron Man game that Motive is making now. For me, I don't understand, like, if you're not going to make licensed games, why are you still making those games? That's the whole contradictory part of this that I don't really get, to say that you're moving away from them, but you're still going to do this other one, for example. I just don't get it. I definitely get Jedi 3 because that's the third installment into a very successful franchise. That one makes sense. But like the Iron Man game, that is the first of that like franchise, I guess. And so why cancel the Black Panther one, but keep the Iron Man one? I just personally, I just don't get it. So it does seem very contradictory, but there are also some elements that I do understand as well. I think when it comes to Battlefield and Apex, I do understand why they focus on those more than Battlefront, and our desire for them to make a Battlefront because they own those franchises. And so to EA, it is better if Battlefield does really well compared to if Battlefront does really well. They make all of the money from Battlefield. They don't have to give money to anyone else because they own the franchise. Whereas if Battlefront 3 were made, they would have to give roughly 30% of all the money made back to Disney. And so I do get the financial side of that it is a smart business decision to focus on the stuff that you own. And I get it with Battlefield and Apex. I don't personally get it with Skate. I know Skate is a big franchise back in the day. I just don't think it is that anymore. And I also don't think, even if that game sells really well, it has the scope that Battlefront does. I just don't think it does. I don't even think Battlefield does, or Apex. It's just that those are well-established franchises and they are slightly different as well. Whereas a game like Skate, to me, it's just like, if you're actually comparing Skate to Battlefront, that to me is mind-boggling. I don't get it. I understand The Sims a little bit because that is it's like its own little niche type of game. So I get that, but to me it's baffling to focus on a franchise like Skate over Battlefront. Now, like I said, I think it is really contradictory to be moving away from the licensed content, but then they're still making Jedi 3. As I mentioned, that is the third installment, so I kind of get that one. But they are also publishing Zero Company. And so I don't know necessarily how it works. They aren't developing it, so maybe they don't have to pay that licensing fee. Maybe it's just BitReactor that has to pay that. But they are still publishing another Star Wars game in Zero Company that is completely unproven. I think it looked great from everything they showed. And I actually got to talk to the developers in Japan last month, and it all looks really promising. I'm very, very keen for that game. But to think that would outsell Battlefront is just completely illogical. It just will not outsell Battlefront at all. So my confusion with this stuff is that why are they... If they just completely cold turkey went away from any licensed content and EA just became like Battlefield, Apex, FIFA, understandable. If that's the way they want to go and they actually stuck to it, I think I'd be like, okay, well, I disagree, but I get it. I understand that. But to move away from the licensed stuff, but then still do licensed stuff, to me, it just doesn't make sense. And if you're gonna make licensed content still, as if Battlefront isn't the one to focus, like as if that isn't going to outsell all of the other stuff you do. As an example, Jedi 3 and Zero Company combined, I will put $1 million on it. They will not outsell Battlefront 2. They just will not. So that whole side of it is very contradictory to me, to say that you're moving away from licensed IP, but to still make some ones that are less proven than Battlefront. Battlefront is one of the biggest names in gaming. So yeah, to me, it all doesn't really make sense, but it is the unfortunate news of the day that because they are shutting down Cliffhanger and cancelling that Black Panther game, it sort of does seem like they are very just scared of doing licensed IP and they just want to focus on their own thing. And obviously I understand the Jedi one, getting out the third Jedi game makes sense. Zero Company doesn't really make sense, even though I want it to make sense because I'm very keen for that game. But if they're using that logic, I don't get that one. And the Iron Man one, if you're going to cancel Black Panther, why not also cancel Iron Man? I just don't get it. So again, kind of contradictory from them, but all of this just kind of adds up and it makes it seem like EA just won't be the ones to make a Battlefront 3 if we do ever get it, which I think we all sort of knew even with this whole Battlefront movement. I don't think anyone genuinely was sitting here thinking, oh, DICE is obviously going to make Battlefront 3 now. I know I didn't. I thought there was a chance, but I never thought it was realistic, but this kind of makes it even more unrealistic, unfortunately. So anyway, that is kind of the news of the day that, again, doesn't directly link to Star Wars, but it kind of does. It at least points to what might potentially happen with their licensed stuff. Now, I'm going to be back in a couple of days with, in fact, I'll actually upload it tomorrow, with a video on how I think we could still get Battlefront 3, not from EA. I think that there is another way that this could be done. And again, it's pretty much a tinfoil hat theory. I'm not going to sit here and think, oh, this is legitimately going to happen. But I wanted to throw my hat in the ring in terms of how I think someone could make a Battlefront 3 and it be actually logical and not be done through EA. So there is still plenty more Battlefront content on the way, guys. This news today doesn't really change too much for me. The whole Battlefront movement that's going on, I still think is just so worth it, because whether we get a Battlefront 3 or not, I think we're making such a clear indication to the gaming industry that we want a Star Wars multiplayer game. I think that is the key here, that someone out there will make a Star Wars multiplayer shooter in 5 years from now. Whether that is Battlefront 3 or whether that's just something that takes inspiration from Battlefront, I don't know, but I still want to keep this Battlefront train rolling, because I really do think it will have an impact whether it's EA or not. So pretty unfortunate news, but to me it doesn't really change anything. I'm still going to be trying to push this whole agenda and keep this Battlefront train rolling. So plenty more content on the way, guys. If you guys missed out as well, I'm bringing back the top 5 plays series, so be sure to check out the link down below where you guys can submit your clips. There will be prizes. I'm trying to get a lightsaber to give away. If I can't, I'm just going to be giving away a bunch of merch and stuff like that. So there will be giveaways for the winner of that. There's also plenty more content on the way on top of the top 5 plays as well. So keep your eyes peeled for all of that. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. Keep your eyes peeled for tomorrow's video. May the force be with you always.